Charlie Scott had a troubled childhood. Growing up on the streets of Harlem was not easy for a young black kid with a lack of parental support. In an attempt to flee the streets and rough neighborhoods of Harlem, Charlie moved himself to North Carolina. This is where his story starts and the legacy he built still stands tall. Charlie worked hard to achieve extraordinary SAT scores and continued to develop his basketball prowess. His hard work paid off when he was set to attend Davidson on an athletic scholarship. When news of this got around the college basketball world, Dean Smith, head coach of the UNC Tar Heels, was quick to act. Dean Smith sent two assistant coaches to watch Charlie play, and the next night Dean flew in to watch for himself. He instantly fell in love with the way Charlie played the game. The University of North Carolina is in Chapel Hill, a liberal town, and was very against ending segregation. Following the ruling that the Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court case was unconstitutional, many more schools desegregated without issue, including Charlotte and Greensboro, but not Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill continued to do nothing to enforce desegregation in their public schools. In 1956, the North Carolina legislature passed the Purcell Act, which was designed to slow the pace of desegregation with the hope that it might not work and go away. Many areas within North Carolina continued to fight integration, including many businesses and restaurants. It wasn't until Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that North Carolina began to comply with the government. This compliance took shape around the same time Charlie Scott was about to begin attending college, and the integration would allow him to attend the University of North Carolina, which Dean Smith was fighting for. Charlie visited UNC before making his final decision about where he was going to attend college. In a recent interview with the ACC network, Scott looked back on his experience at UNC and his motivations for attending the school.
You're on a team where at Laurinburg you are one of a number of black basketball players.
One of 15.
One of 15 black basketball players. You come to where you're the only black basketball player, the only black athlete at the university.
True.
Once you got off the court, you really didn't have a support system. Who did you talk to? Who were your people that you spent time with?
I mean, to be honest with you, and this is, I mean, I had no relationship with my teammates. My college experience was not a college experience because the things that made North Carolina, my teammates could not enjoy with me. I could not go to fraternities with them. I couldn't go to parties with them. We couldn't hang out together. We had nothing in common. I played basketball at North Carolina. They couldn't do anything with me. The society that we lived in the South did not allow them to have anything to do with me. To see the South in the 60s is to see a society where you and I would never be thought of as a human being. We were thought of as something on this earth that wasn't equal to human beings.
It would have been simple to go to Syracuse where, you know, racism wasn't as predominant, as well as UCLA. What still made that to be the best decision for you?
Well, retrospect now, it's the greatest decision I've ever made in my life. But I'm saying at that time, there was a lot of factors involved. And the biggest factor was my high school coach. Because like I say, he was a visionary. He understood the importance of having the first black athlete at the University of North Carolina. So, like I said, he saw in me maybe that I had the potential or the ability to do what was necessary to be successful at North Carolina.
Scott's use of the phrase less than human being to describe his treatment at UNC, paired with his alienated tone and long pauses, emphasizes the racial divide during his time and just how difficult it was to be the lone black athlete at UNC. Furthermore, his conversations with his high school coach demonstrates a level of grooming involved in breaking a color barrier. Charlie faced segregation following the progression of integration and was even denied service at a restaurant he was at with his high school coaches. Charlie recalled that Dean Smith was the only coach he ever went to church with and soon realized that UNC was a different environment. Charlie signed with UNC the next night and became the first African American to be a scholarship athlete at the school. Although there were other African Americans who integrated the ACC and SEC as a whole, Charlie played a much bigger role in integration for the future of other colleges. Charlie Scott was able to fight through all of the struggles he faced in life and change UNC and integration into college sports forever.
Despite the accomplishments of Charlie Scott, not all black college athletes were as fortunate. In steps Willie Cooper. Cooper was born in Wilson, North Carolina, where his parents lived in poverty working as sharecroppers. His father died when he was only 8 years old, forcing him and his mother to turn to welfare as a means for survival. Out of fear of being ridiculed for his shabby clothing, Cooper rarely went to school. I basically ran wild, notes Cooper. I was in the streets in the mornings trying to find food, foraging for myself. Cooper soon found solace in the neighboring town of Elm City. With the help of human services, Willie was put under the care of the Mitchell family. One sister in the family took a special interest in Willie, introducing him to several books, including Moby Dick and the Story of Anne Frank. Willie began thriving in school and developed a newfound interest, basketball. Willie first played organized ball in 7th grade. That was an exciting thing to happen, to get a uniform and to be a part of something, a team, Cooper admits. He went on to excel as a member of the Frederick Douglass High School team, where his height and athleticism caught the attention of college coaches. Cooper's life would soon take a turn, one he never could have expected only a few years before. Cooper was approached by 2 white men wearing suits following one of his high school contests, carrying a video camera. The men told Willie that they were from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and that they were looking for black players that could break the color barrier at the school. At the time, the North Carolina men's program was struggling to win games. Hoping to fix this, the well-acclaimed coach and future Hall of Famer, Dean Smith, set his eyes on Willie. With the help of an academic scholarship, Willie soon became a Tar Heel, attending North Carolina's School of Business. In his first year, Willie was just one of 18 African American students in his class. Willie's grades were certainly up to par, however, his basketball skills were not. Willie was unable to make the school's varsity team, so he was placed on the freshman team in hopes that his game would improve. Despite Dean Smith's efforts to integrate blacks into the varsity team, Willie Cooper failed to balance his schoolwork with athletics. Or did he? According to most, Willie's feel-good story was ended when he met with Coach Dean Smith. Supposedly, Willie told Smith that he would be unable to try out for his team due to struggling grades. And although today he remains relatively silent about what could have been, Cooper has a different account of what shattered the hopes of integration. According to Cooper, the beginning of the end started with his roommates. He was the lone black kid placed in a room with 3 white football players, whom quickly complained about the situation. Cooper was soon asked to move out. However, the dorms were not the only place where Willie was met with racism. Despite the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that outlawed discrimination based on race, Cooper still faced much of the same treatment that blacks experienced during the Jim Crow era. Cooper's own team refused to bring him with them on their trip to face South Carolina, and he was often pushed around by his so-called teammates. On a subsequent trip to face the University of Virginia, Willie was refused to be served at a restaurant. Fans at numerous venues chanted racist and hateful remarks at him. Finally, the pressures that came with being the only black kid on the predominantly white team caught up to Willie. Willie was forced to abandon his dream after his freshman year. Willie Cooper went on to serve 3 years in the U.S. Army before becoming an operations manager for IBM. In 1991, Willie's son Brent played junior varsity basketball at UNC. And in 1994, Tanya Cooper, Willie's daughter, helped the Lady Tar Heels basketball team win the NCAA championship. Although Willie was the first black player for the freshman team at UNC, he was unable to accomplish the significant feat of desegregating UNC varsity basketball. The contrasting endings of Willie Cooper and Charlie Scott's stories show that the process of desegregation did not promise success for all African Americans, and that successful integration relied on just the right timing and aid from others.